Okay, so I think we'll go ahead now and get started, and then anyone else that's joining later can just sort of jump in with us. So thank you very much. Before we sort of kick off the intro here, I'll just go over sort of some quick virtual etiquette. So we will have some time today for discussions and some questions during the interview and afterwards as well. So if during that time you can turn your mic and your camera on, if you feel comfortable, that would be great. For the rest of it, they can stay off. So welcome very much to the session today to solving common challenges in the life science labeling at the local and global scale. With us today is Robert Bernardo, the Senior Manager of Packaging Processes and Systems from Pfizer. And he's going to be in an interview with our Business Development Manager, Arpad, today. Susan Proper, one of our Senior Account Executives, is going to be facilitating their discussion. And I'm your host, Louisa Berger, also an Account Executive here at GlobalVision. So the agenda for today, we're going to do a really quick intro, and then we're going to get right into the keynote and finish up with a Q&A. We do want this to be a pretty interactive session. So if at any time during the keynote, you have a question that's relevant to the topic or to sort of a curiosity that might spin off of that, feel free to raise your virtual hand and we'll sort of give you a moment to ask that question. If you don't want to ask directly, feel free as well to put your question in the chat, and then one of us will sort of interrupt the conversation so that we can steer it based on sort of what you guys want to hear and what interests you today. So kind of going off of that as well, the goal for today, and feel free to put in the chat what you were expecting to get out of today, but from our standpoint, it's really to look at the labeling, standardization, and quality control space, some common challenges that have sort of existed both on a small scale and also at sort of this bigger global scale, talk about implementing these automated strategies and electronic proofing technologies, and what sort of the implications and outcomes of that have been, and really looking at all of this through the lens of this really great industry leader, Pfizer, and Robert's position there and how he has sort of navigated that landscape. So without further ado, we'll get right into it with Arpad and Robert kicking off the discussion.
Hey, good morning, Louisa. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Glad to have you both with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, Rob, I am gonna place you into the spotlight. Louisa, you may want to stop your share.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
I have to stare at myself.
Yeah, same here, Rob. Same here. Good morning, everyone. So again, my name is Arpad Lahosky. I'm the Business Development Manager at GlobalVision. I've actually been with GlobalVision over 24 years now, working with companies like Rob and Pfizer, implementing, developing, training, providing solutions when it comes to automated proofreading and electronic inspection. I'm really much looking forward to having a great conversation with Rob and get his insight on globalization, the artwork management process in general, how he's implemented a system like that at Pfizer, some best practices, some challenges he's had, and hopefully we can give you some good information if you're looking at an artwork management system and how you can implement it at your company. If you're looking for automated proofreading and quality control systems and how to inspect packaging and labeling through the eyes of GlobalVision, we're more than happy to provide you information and some insight onto delivering those types of systems. So looking forward to my chat here, Rob, and if you want to maybe just quickly introduce yourself and we'll kick it off.
Yes, hi, I'm Robert Bernardo, as Arpad said. I'm located in New Jersey at our PPAC facility, which unfortunately I haven't visited in quite a while, obviously with the current situation we're in. I work in the packaging organization and am responsible for the artwork management for PGS. And what PGS is it's Pfizer Global Supply. So we have shared ownership with our regulatory organization. So it's partially owned by regulatory and partially owned by PGS. And I am the PGS owner. So I support all of the sites and the artwork centers around the world. So I'm glad to be here.
I do like your little Christmas setup there behind you. That's pretty cool. So Rob, obviously, you know, the topic of the day, you know, COVID and things going around the world, and obviously Pfizer being in the forefront of you know, the vaccine and the delivery of the vaccine. So again, I just want to personally say, you know, fantastic job by your company and your organization. You know, and hopefully we can turn the corner with this terrible virus, and you know, things will get back to normal in 2021. So Maybe in the eyes of this sort of discussion, how has the artwork management process that you've implemented, or you've not personally implemented, but you've worked in Pfizer over the last number of years, how has that helped or quickened up or sped up the process with the labeling and the packaging aspect of getting things to market?
Well, actually, we did things a little differently, obviously, with this situation, COVID being a little different and what we've had to deal with. Normally, we have a lot of sites in our network. Obviously, we're a pretty large company, and each site is associated with an artwork center, either internal or external. Okay, it depends on how they manage their costs and how they want to manage that space. So we don't dictate to them what to do. Normally, each artwork center would develop the artwork specific to a plant. So if the plant's manufacturing the product, that artwork center that supports them would do the artwork. This is a little different, and I'm not giving away any secrets here. You probably have all read in the media that our two sites that are going to be manufacturing the product are in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and in Purs, Belgium. So normally, the artwork center that supports Purs would do it, and the artwork center that supports Kalamazoo. In this case, we have the same artwork, and in order to streamline this whole process, only one site managed the artwork for everybody. Okay, so there was a tremendous amount of coordination because your lines are different when you think about it, right? So you would have to have exactly the same line in order to have an unvarnished area on something specified exactly the same and things like that. So one site we felt would be best suited to manage with regulatory all of the artwork in that space. So that really helped us get to market quicker with this. So it was different.
So yeah, no, and I think that makes total sense, right? And what you said makes total sense. But in general, if we look at your entire process when it comes to artwork management and the artwork management process, you were just talking about labeling. Obviously, the process starts way upstream in regulatory. So for those listening right now, if you're looking at a globalization and a multi-site organization, how would you start a process for managing that process from the regulatory standpoint through to labeling or creating the artwork? What are some of the best practices people could look for, would you recommend?
Well, you're gonna, first of all, you have to partner with all the functional areas that are involved. Okay, so when you're building your processes, all those areas are involved in building the process. That's how you make a process work. Everyone needs to buy into it. You don't want to force something down someone's throat. I mean, that just never works. Okay, people push back. So when you build the process, and coincidentally, we're doing it again right now as we change the system that we're using. So we have that collaborative process going on right now as we do the process mapping. So it's a mammoth effort. It'll easily take a year and a half to implement. So that's ongoing. But you have the regulatory who could initiate a change, or marketing, but you also have a plant who can initiate a change. I mean, suppose they change the drawing, right? So either one of those can initiate a change, and that's the first part of our process. So when you look at artwork, there's two parts to it, right? There's the actual development of the artwork. Once you decide what changes you want to make or what product you want to launch, and you route that artwork. But the first part of that's the change control. So we have built the two together so that there's a change control defining right up front what it is you're going to implement, what's the scope of your project, and then what are the SKUs that are going to be impacted, and what specific components associated with those SKUs will be changing. So that's the first part of this. And that's where you have the sharing between the PGS network and the regulatory marketing, or the commercial, I'll call it, or organization, which is comprised of those different functional areas. So those two work together to agree on the change control. And then the change control defines what it is that you're going to do.
And obviously you have technology to manage that process. I mean, a lot of the customers who I've dealt with, or sometimes have smaller organizations, that's a manual process. So would you say the first initial hurdle you just mentioned is collaborative? The organization has to get together and understand that process, map it out, and then build into a process the proper workflows and controls to be able to do stuff like that. So again, would you say that the collaborative approach would be the first challenge? Would people want to look at, like, map out your process, make sure you have a good mapping of that process before bringing in a technology partner to do something like that?
You want to kind of identify who your partner is going to be, because they're going to give you ideas. So just by looking at what they have to offer, I mean, look at the industry itself with respect to artwork management systems and where it's come from and how much it's evolved. They have put together, processes themselves that you would follow. Now you're going to tailor them to your needs. So when you're dealing with software companies like this, you can build in what it is that you want typically. So it helps to get an idea of what's out there. I mean, that was our approach. What are the best systems available? What do you have to offer? How do you integrate with our systems, which is huge? Okay, you're talking about an end-to-end process. You're talking about interacting with our ERP systems. You're talking about interacting with our GTIN system, which we have. So SAP, GTIN systems, Oracle, all of these systems are regulatory systems. How can we communicate to these different systems the information? Okay, instead of having to type it in multiple systems, which makes no sense. You want to eliminate that redundancy. Okay, we all know how difficult it is to get a budget to hire people, all right? So you don't want to have RPAD entering something into 3 different systems. It makes no sense. Okay, so you certainly want to eliminate that redundancy. And that's part of the key things that we look for in the software, not just what it could do and how it could help us manage in the artwork space, but what kind of connectivity? How difficult is it to connect? What things do you have to offer? Do you have 3D development capabilities? Do you have the ability to interact with drawings or even approve them? So there's a lot of aspects you want to look at.
And I'm glad you just touched upon approval, because as you know, here at GlobalVision, we specialize in the automated and the packaging approval, text inspection. How has an approval system or a proofreading system such as GlobalVision helped further automate that process or facilitated the process from that initial conception all the way down to packaging and in terms of getting the artwork? We talked about COVID, getting the packaging, getting that label to market faster, getting it to market more accurate. How has these systems impacted your daily life when it comes to artwork management and process optimization?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because when we did our initial project, I was the lead on it in identifying who we were going to go with. And remember, I said about the collaboration, we had people from many different functional areas from all around the world involved in identifying who should we partner with. And there were 11 companies. We narrowed it to 3 after working with them and understanding their capabilities. And then we decided on you guys. And part of our decision was based on the fact that you had a number of things to offer. We did not want to go to one company that could provide a solution for our sites for incoming inspection and then go to another company that would allow us to proofread our documents in the artwork space. So you provided both. And that was a digital page, DocuProof, and Scan TVS at the time, right? So we use your systems throughout the process. And I would say that we're even establishing a better process now because our proofreading is done offline, okay? And it's not incorporated into our system itself. It will be with the changes that we're going through right now when we build the new system with our new partner. So proofreading, the auto proofreading solution will be within our artwork management space. Right now, it's part of an outside workflow. So there's a group, what we call document verification, that does the proofreading, that uses the GlobalVision tool to do the proofreading, all right? Then it moves on from there. Once it's been proofread, then it moves to what we refer to as market approvers. Those people within the separate countries or Pfizer country offices within their country that approve the artwork based on the content. Okay, so obviously you still need people to look at this and read through it and make sure that the content is what they expect. Then the print inspection part of it, which we're implementing now from Scan TVS, is at the sites. And we are happy, I will say, with the improvement between Scan TVS and print inspection. Scan TVS was a little, was one of your more challenging pieces of software to work with. Print inspection has increased our throughput by 50% based on studies we did at a couple of our facilities in England and the US. So that's been a huge help. And what we do is we have the sites and quality access our management system with the artwork, the approved artwork, and then compare it to the scanned copy that they receive at the sites. So you get the component, you scan it, and you compare it to the actual approved artwork file. So now you have a digitally approved artwork system that manages this, and it goes much faster for us.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you saying that. I mean, obviously, our business case has always been two things, quite simple: time and accuracy, right? So we'll, throughput, how much time are you spending doing that manual visual inspection process, and how can we help automate that and make that quicker? And obviously, visual proofreading as a whole is inaccurate, inefficient, just not a fun thing to do. I mean, especially if you're talking about affiliates and reading foreign languages and all that stuff. So this has been a good relationship, but as you just mentioned, we're running on parallel tracks, right? You're running on that AMS track, we're running on the proofreading track. And one of our goals moving into next year is to bring those two together in a harmonious way. So I'm glad you brought that up, because certainly people that listening in can understand that, organizationally, structurally, system-wise, you want everything under one piece of software, right? One place. And you mentioned you don't want to be entering information in one place in three different systems. Extremely inefficient. And I think a lot of people on the phone now could probably attest to that and understand that process. It's painful. It's not fun. In life sciences, in my experience, changing of software has always been a challenge, not because of the technology, because of the compliance, the validation. So how have you met that hurdle or overcome that hurdle with the compliance piece? Because validation is always the toughest thing, I find, in my experience, right? Certification and validation, right? So changing one system to another system is fine, but you still have to go through a compliance level. So maybe if you have some insight for people on the phone on how that process has worked at Pfizer, if you can.
That's a big challenge for us. I would say the biggest challenge, I mean, Pfizer is a pharmaceutical company, like I'm sure most of the people on the phone are affiliated with the pharmaceutical industry. We're very rigid and structured in how we approach the implementation of systems. Okay, obviously quality and compliance is critical. Because of that, we have to validate it. We always have to validate it. And the challenge for us has been the number of, we wanted a partner who was going to be proactive in making changes to their system and incorporating best practices, right? Well, then how do we avail ourselves of your updates? We got to validate. What does validation take? Time, money, people. Okay, how do I get that in my budget? So you've incorporated all these changes and I can't do anything with them because I've got to validate. And it takes time, money, and people. So we have met our own challenges here as far as how do we take your documentation and accept that. Not an easy thing to accomplish in our industry, because the pharmaceutical company, those folks are going to want to, we're going to want to do it ourselves. No offense, but we can do it better, and that's what they think. And so how do you adopt the documents that you have supporting you validating this is not something that we've easily overcome. It's something we'd like to do. We are working diligently to do it, but even Pfizer, we're not there yet. We typically have to validate. It's part of what we're trying to do, but not there.
Do you find or anticipate that validation becoming more difficult or more complex as systems become integrated? Do you think that as you're integrating, I mean, it sounds like, people have three systems. Now we're moving to one system. I mean, they sound logically like that'd be just much simpler to validate, right? As opposed to three separate and then changing three separate systems, right? As you upgrade one, dependencies change for the other one. And then you're like, oh, great, now I got to do this whole validation effort. So I assume the answer is going to be yes, but I'd just like to get your point of view on that.
Well, there's two parts to that. One is the acceptance or the validation. Let's just take the GlobalVision software, the auto proofreading space. I would like to accept your documents that you've gone through this and move forward from there. If I get to that point, I will never be able to avoid doing a validation where I'm incorporating information from your system into SAP, for example. Not going to happen. Okay, I mean, that will always require validation because I'm taking information from one system and going to another. So I'm either pushing or pulling. So I need to prove that what's going from one system to the other is accurate. So that will never change. But I would like to say that when you incorporate improvements, that we could easily adopt them instead of going through a full-blown validation of your system. So that would be our step forward. And that would certainly help our customers to get the best practices that you're incorporating in your system.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, our approach has always been, we still support a desktop application, like you said, like a scan system, where it's a site-by-site validation at the incoming manufacturing sites. But with our web-based technology, it's a single platform. So you don't have to, validate 500 individual workstations. You validate one systems. But yeah, I mean, I've been through this several times with you and other customers as well. We still need to do that additional work. It's just the nature of the beast in dealing with the world of life sciences, I guess.
Well, that's what you just said. You touched on something that's a little different. We do have central applications. So our EPOMS application, which is our artwork management system, that is centrally validated. We couldn't possibly validate each machine. That would make no sense. So that is sourced centrally by all the sites, by all of the Pfizer country offices, by all the artwork centers, external artwork centers, external contract manufacturers. It is validated with the central organization, and then people access that. So we did the same thing with proofreading. We're not going to go validate every single site. It makes no sense. It's not workable. Okay, so yeah, we centrally validate those things. Well, our network is too large. You have 40 manufacturing sites. I can't even tell you how many country offices. Could you imagine?
Yeah.
The cost would be ridiculous.
Yeah. I just want to remind everyone listening, if you do have questions, we are willing to take questions on the fly here. So if you have any questions, please post them to the chat. Sue and Louisa, my colleagues, are moderating the chat message board right now. So if you have any questions you'd like to post to Rob or myself, we can bring them into the conversation as we go forward. Rob, I do want to switch gears a little bit. So you talked a little bit about the nuts and bolts of an artwork management system, that process optimization, getting everyone together, being on the same page, and going to market, getting the right partners to be able to deliver systems like this. But what about business benefits? So, ROI and business, like how did you manage to convince business? I mean, you got to switch from one system to another. That's no small feat, right? So you have to convince business owners and get budget. And what are some of the drivers in first looking for an artwork management system, and then maybe those looking to replace? Like how do others listening overcome some of these challenges, and how have you overcome these challenges?
There are so many benefits of having a global artwork management system. First of all, you have one harmonized process that you have within your whole network. You have a global change control process that everybody has to follow. You have specific, well-defined roles. So in our PGS organization, we have roles that people play. In our regulatory and commercial space, they have roles, and they're the same roles throughout the network. You have electronic routing and approval. You have audit trails. You have one global repository for artwork. We do not allow people to have separate databases with their artwork. How do you know which one is the current approved artwork? So if I need to pull artwork for a regulatory submission or to provide information to a regulatory authority, they've got to get it from our artwork management system. We know that it's the current most approved artwork. We know that when we make a change, that we now have a new approved piece of artwork and the prior artwork is superseded. And it shows that it's superseded, or we obsolete it if we're never going to use it again. We have real-time annotations of our artwork that we're able to do. And in fact, when we do these annotations, other people can see them if they're online doing annotations with that component too. We have metrics reporting, huge amount of metrics reporting. What's going on? Why are we getting so many changes? How many versions have we had of this? Are there particular countries that are having difficulty? Are we having language barrier issues? Who's getting it right? Who's getting it wrong? And it's not to say, gotcha. You know, it's more to say, okay, well, this particular area in this country or in this manufacturing site needs some more work. Okay, they need some more training. They need some more help. There's so many. Where is the artwork? Okay, where is it in the workflow? Who's got it? You know, what are the lead times between the different functional areas? Who's holding up things? Okay, especially valuable when you got to turn something around like that. You know, with COVID, where is it? I mean, you know, remember for some of you, maybe you've experienced this years and years ago when we routed things manually in folders, we have what we call a signing party, right? Everybody gets in the room from all the functional groups,
Yeah.
and we all look at the artwork, we all comment on it, and you sign off on it. That's all done collaboratively now, and you don't have to be in the same place, online, okay? And then, you know, future linking to auto proofreading tools, linking to your ERP system, linking to your regulatory databases, linking to your GTIN databases. All of these are benefits that you're going to have. So it's not just a cost ROI. There's a compliance ROI. There's a quality ROI. There's an efficiency. There's so many different aspects to this that are of benefit. You know, when I came to Pfizer, my background is I came from Wyeth and came in the acquisition. Pfizer had launched this, I believe it was around 2008, and it's just been evolving, and we just keep incorporating best practices. And we do this through, and you've heard this term, I know Ruben always liked it, community of practice. So months a month, we have all of the people in the artwork space, you know, and I'm not talking hundreds, I'm talking 30 or 40 who represents the different areas around the world at sites, in regulatory and quality at artwork centers, who talk about best practices and how we work in this space. And these are the people who we use to collaborate with when we're choosing a new system and help build it. So it's been a process that has continually evolved and will continue to evolve. So continuing process improvement is something that's built in to what we do in our daily lives at Pfizer. And that's how we approach this.
Yeah, no, great. And that's fantastic to hear. So obviously with me sitting here in my basement, you sitting in your living room, you just talked about that signing party and how have you seen the shift from being in the office and doing this stuff, you know, and these systems and work from home? Like how has the adoption been at Pfizer? And I guess for anyone listening, you know, like how were you able to flip the switch and say, okay, you're all working from home now? And now you gotta work remotely, and technology-wise, has it been a smooth transition? Has it been some challenges?
I would say it depends. So, and that's always the answer you give, right? It depends. So for me, it's been seamless. Okay, I could work from home. I could work from the office. That doesn't matter to me. My challenge has been I need to get to sites. So you're familiar with me, I do a fair amount of travel. Okay, and I'm out with my customers because it's all artwork space for me. And I'm at the different sites, I'm working with them, I'm helping them. I'm doing, you know, evaluations of different processes at the sites to help them. So it's a little different for me. That's been my challenge. Working from home, working from the office, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. You can't tell if I'm home or at work if you're not looking at my background, right? But you know, the artwork centers, they had to bring their Macs home. Okay, that was a little different for them. Okay, the manufacturing facilities, those people in incoming inspection, they have to be there. Somebody has to get the component, receive it, scan it, and compare it. So they've got to be there. You know, so they're on the front line of this. The regulatory people, the commercial people, they could be online too. So for us, it was a very, very minor blip. I would say the most difficult part of this was all of a sudden, all of those people who were working on Macs had to bring all that equipment home. Okay. For me, I've got my laptop. It came home with me every day anyway. And for a lot of us, that was the case. So everything went relatively smoothly for us.
Has it impacted productivity, do you think?
I don't think so.
No impact?
No, I don't think so. In fact, I would say it's the opposite. We're working more. I mean, it's so normally I'm in my den working, and I'm now working by my computer. I'm watching something in the evening, and what do? My computer's right there. I click on it, and I'm looking at emails. So unfortunately, for a lot of us, we're working more often. I get up early in the morning. I have my coffee. What do? I go on my computer. So the same on weekends. So I would say just the opposite.
Yeah, I think we can all test to that. I mean, instead of having your sip of coffee in your kitchen and doing the commute, you're downstairs in front of your computer doing the same, right? So we just spend more time in front of the computer, more time working, which is not a bad thing. It's just the way it is, I guess, these days. Switch a little bit again, gears in terms of user adoption, right? Implementing a global systems, and you mentioned you'd have the signing parties. You're now tracking, tracing everything. How has user adoption been, not only of our work management systems, but even proofreading systems? I mean, we've seen it at GlobalVision, and I've seen it personally, where people just want to look at things visually, right? In the early days when they were printing out their PDFs, and I would like to read it visually because they weren't trusting the PDF, right? And that we overcame that obstacle. I mean, we were always supporting PDF documents, but it was just a mind shift, getting away from paper to electronic. And now anyone doing paper. I still don't understand why, but there still are. But I mean, with a global artwork management system, that's much more complex than printing out 2 pieces of paper. So, challenges, and what maybe people listening, how can they overcome user adoption? What message can you say, or best practices can you talk about user adoption?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question. I come from really a different space. So in packaging, you would normally have a package engineer, right? I'm not a package engineer. My undergrad was in biology. My graduate's biochemistry. I actually started in research and development in vaccine development. Okay, so after I got my MBA, I went more into operations and the commercial side of the business and project management. So what did I do? I would work at the sites, and like I said, I would help them to build better processes. How do you get somebody to adopt a process? You go there and dictate to them what to do? They're going to push back. You don't dictate. You sit down and you listen and you learn, and then you work together to build something. You want to get somebody to adopt something, you have them involved in building it. And that is the key element. So when we have an artwork system, we have those stakeholders involved in helping to design what it is. Okay, and that's what we're going through right now. The people from the artwork centers, what are your pain points? How can we make it better for you? The people in regulatory and marketing and the supply chain, how can you better involve yourselves with this? What do you need? Okay, an editor's copy workflow. Well, wouldn't that be great to build into the system now, instead of having an editor's copy annotated and then uploaded it in our system? Well, let's build a workflow around it. Okay, and let's show the approval within our system. How about the sites? How can you guys work better? Well, how can we get those components automatically populated from our ERP system into our EPOM system instead of someone having to type it in? So you're engaging these people and you're getting their feedback. When you incorporate the feedback from someone, they're going to adopt it. Okay, they realize that you've now considered their input important. So whenever you want to do anything, you want to have a collaborative effort and have people involved. Then you're going to get buy-in.
Makes total sense. And how early in the process do you think? I mean, there's the vendor selection process, but now you've got to engage the user community in how you're going to use it. And I would imagine those start extremely early in your process, right? In this, even I guess in your change control with your current process now, you're changing over systems. You got to re-engage again. Where are the gaps and where can we fit those gaps? So again, you have a better overall process. But I guess for everyone listening, how early in the process should you start doing that? From the get-go, or what?
So in the beginning, it would be unwieldy to have everybody involved. So you get a core group of subject matter experts representing each functional area, people who are respected within their areas, within the networks, And they know that you are speaking for them on their behalf. So people are comfortable with me talking about the artwork space for PGS. So me and I have a couple of colleagues that I typically recommend as subject matter experts. We would be involved. The people in regulatory, the people in our ALIM group, our above labeling implementation management team, they're all involved. And we get that group and we work with a supplier. Once we identify who that supplier is going to be, the process mapping involves more people. Okay, so you're going to get more people engaged, and then you're going to break it up into small subteams based on reporting, based on data migration, based on metrics, based on SOPs. So you're going to ask people, I just did this yesterday, what people within the subject matter experts I picked want to be involved in what substream? Because we're not going to have 40 people at a meeting. You're going to have 2 or 3 representing the supply chain for us on each one of those subteams. And you'll have comparable people from the commercial organization on those subteams too. So from the get-go, once you've identified who it is, you're going to want to get them involved.
Yeah, we here at GlobalVision see similar, right? When our system's obviously not as large of a deployment, but we do see systems where we're deploying 300, 400, 500 licenses, and it's unrealistic to get that many users, into a meeting. But we do have, you do get your subject matter experts, and when you're deploying in your first phase of deployment, train the super users will train the users, and you get that feedback mechanism going. It's obviously an obvious way to work, and it just sounds like you need to get that process going as soon as possible. Follow-up question to what you had before. You mentioned that you go to the sites and you understand their business cases, their needs. Maybe you can share with some people, what are some of the obvious low-hanging fruit, right? What are some of the apparent optimizations that someone can look at in terms of an artwork space that they can knock off immediately? Routing, you mentioned it before, signing parties. Are there any maybe other sort of basic components that someone could say this is an obvious place to start, and maybe obvious to them, maybe not to me, but maybe you can just mention it to everyone?
Well, we have a rather mature system. So the low-hanging fruit was kind of picked a long time ago. So when Pfizer has a tendency, no shock to anybody acquiring companies. Okay, you look back at our history, Pharmacia, Upjohn, Warner Lambert, King, Wyeth, Hospira. So they have allowed those companies to somewhat operate autonomously with respect to, and somebody just came home, so excuse the dogs barking because they're letting me know someone just came home.
No worries, the dog can join the party.
It's a whole new world. I found out who has kids. I found out who has cats and dogs. It's unbelievable. Sorry for that. So when we're dealing with a new company, you go in, and that's when you can identify the low-hanging fruit, because you're going to have them adopt your systems, okay? But when you're doing that, you need to realize that, hey, we're not the be-all, get-all here just because we're Pfizer. Well, what are they doing? I want to know what they're doing, and how different is it than what we're doing, and should we take some of those best practices? So that's your opportunity right there. One, you're dealing with a company that, they've just been acquired. They're nervous, obviously. They're the acquired company. Well, how do you get them into your confidence? It's like, listen, we're going to work together on this. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to tell you what to do. This is what we do. What do you guys do? How do you do it? We've adopted some practices from different companies for sure. Okay, in the past that was not the case, but as we've grown and as we've evolved, we've seen that, hey, you know what, we can learn too, and that's the approach I've always taken. It's like, okay, well, what do you do? One of the most important things is listening. Sit back and listen before you make any comments or make any statements. Understand what's going on. So yeah, the low-hanging fruit part you might be able to find with new sites. But when you have mature sites, it's about identifying newer opportunities, newer ways to work, newer ways to integrate. That's kind of what we're looking at now. It's funny you say low-hanging fruit because I was involved in that project during the acquisition with Wyeth and Pfizer when we merged. We actually had a low-hanging fruit project, but we're past that. That's 11 years ago.
Yeah. I guess any final advice you would just give to anybody, both in terms of, looking at an artwork management system, globalizing, you're a massive global organization. There are people on the phone who may just have a single site, a single artwork center, maybe outsource the artwork and outsource packaging as well, or packaging manufacturing. But just any sort of final advice, both in terms of global vision, proofreading technology, artwork management systems, sort of any final messages that you can deliver to everybody as, as a good takeaway, any best practices, I guess.
That's interesting that if I were going to make an analogy based on your question, it would be like somebody asking me financial advice. If I tell them what to do, I've made a gross mistake, okay? Because I have no idea where they stand as far as a person with, are they risk averse? What kind of finances are they? Where are they close to retirement? I can't answer the question. So in this case with you and that question, it depends on your needs. We're an extremely large company. I'm sure there may be some large companies on the phone and they may have the same type of needs we have, but there's smaller companies too. What do you need? What do you want to do? And you need to identify that for yourselves as your own company. It's a huge difference when I've got, say, 20 artwork centers around the world and 40 sites, say, and I may have a company who has one central artwork center and 2 manufacturing sites. Big difference, okay? So the needs are different. So you really do need to understand what you kind of want to be when you grow up here and what it is that you need to service your business and who's involved, and then decide what your needs are. So like I said, to me, it's listening to what's out there with all of these mature software companies that have these solutions. What's available to me? What do I need? So it's a series of meetings where, you might have everybody in a room. You can't do that now, and you go through the exercise of, what do each of us want in this space, and define what those things are, and then identify a company based on what your needs are and tick them off. Well, what do they have to offer? Does it fill this need? Does it fill that need? Oh, you know what? They filled the most needs. Let's look at them and narrow it down that way. That would be the approach that I would take, because I can't tell one company which way to go because they're completely different than us, or another one that might be more comparable to us may have a completely different structure. So there's just so many variables that are involved here. And you're going to need to understand what it is that you want to get out of it.
I guess maybe sidebar, is there typically one business owner for something like this? How is there someone that sponsors this? How would that work?
So that's funny you ask that. This particular system for many, many years was in the PGS space. So when I look at this from a law firm perspective, there's a junior partner and a senior partner, right? So the PGS at the time was the senior partner. We've just flipped this over to regulatory now, and they are the owners, and I'm the junior partner and they're senior partners. But keyword, partner. We still partner together. We still need to work together. You don't want one side telling the other side what to do. And when you have 2 massive organizations of regulatory research and marketing and another massive organization in Pfizer Global Supply, you don't want them butting heads. That's the last thing you want. You want to have that collaboration. So we make certain that all of our folks are engaged and that we constantly talk with one another. Okay, and we air our dirty laundry in these community practice meetings, to get all your cards on the table. What do you need? So you might have somebody say, in regulatory, we need to do this. Well, no, it impacts that at the site, and they never knew that. Okay, you don't have these conversations, you're not going to know that. One of the gotcha moments for me was we had a meeting in Portugal, and it was a meeting, a global meeting in Europe, Europe specific, because we went, I wouldn't say global, but it was Europe specific, and we have market coordinators and plant coordinators. Market obviously is the Pfizer country office, plant obviously the plant. And when I was going through the training with them, when I first started, we had the market coordinators come on one day, and I did their training, and then we had the plant coordinators come on another day. And then the third day, we had the market approvers. And I realized in talking to these people, they had never met one another. I said, how could you work together if you've never even met one another? You've been working together for 6 years, and you guys never even met each other? I changed all the training. So now the market coordinators, the plant coordinators get trained together. Oh, and by the way, you need to know the other person's role. So when I go through the training with them, and when we built our system, the plant coordinators acted as market coordinators. The market coordinators acted as plant coordinators. And they got to understand the difficulties that, or the impact that they had when they made decisions on the other group. Okay, now they're all working together because they're starting to realize, you know what, I made this decision. I really had a bad impact on this other group. You don't do that until you're in their shoes. So we really, we didn't say press a button. We talked about what the ramifications are when you press that button. What did it mean? Okay, what does it mean when you provide information? And we tell you, I'm providing information in this change control to a plant. If you were going to get this information, would you understand what it meant? If you don't understand what it means, guess what? The artwork center and the plant don't understand it either. So it was a different approach in getting everybody together. And now you're working in the system as a team as compared to us and them. And that was a huge learning experience for me. That was when the light bulb went on that one day. I'll never forget it.
And your dog likes that idea as well.
Dog loved that. Yeah.
Dog, yeah. I've been engaged in several of these projects, and while certain customers are building up those best practices, those learnings, and implementing systems, there's still the general requirement for proofreading. Documents still need to get approved. So what I've seen is, and I've often recommended, start that proofreading process early, implement a quality control system, check those boxes, because those are imperative with or without an artwork management system. And let's work together with our partners and with our customers and harmonize these systems and bring things together. Right. So we get to a point of a phase 2 and a phase 3. And I think we're discussing this as well, Rob, and you're in our relationship, but those next phases as early as possible. And I think you just, the message there is good communication, community of practice, good documentation leads to successful projects. So I think that's sort of the takeaways I get from your message here. Rob, we've come to the conclusion with about 10 minutes to go to the top of the hour. What I want to do now is I want to bring in my colleague. Well, first of all, before I do that, I want to thank you. I appreciate your time today. I know you're extremely busy. Lots going on at Pfizer, so I really appreciate you taking the time and sitting with me today and going through this. I hope that everyone on the call today and listening in got something out of this. Feel free to ask questions. You can continue to ask questions. We'll open the floor now as well to questions. I'll bring in Sue. I'm just going to bring in her right now. And Sue will be able to, my colleague Susan Proper, she'll be able to moderate some of the conversation here regarding questions. So Sue, if you want to turn on your camera.
Yes, I will do that. Okay. And again, I wanted to thank you as well, Rob. We've had a relationship with Pfizer for many, many years. And one of the things within our relationship, I think you have seen GlobalVision evolve a lot over the years, our technology. And so this actual question, I wanted to actually address it to Arpad, who is our business development manager. He oversees a lot of our products. And one of the things maybe that we should talk about just a little bit for a couple of minutes is where GlobalVision is going with technology. Since we are talking about integrations and the whole world of technology and what Pfizer is using, what our other customers are using, it's changing. The roadmap is changing. So maybe Arpad, if you want to talk a little bit about where GlobalVision is going.
Yeah, so globalization, so I think Rob has touched upon it several times, right? Globalization, right? I mean, a lot of these companies are globalizing, they're optimizing their processes, they're standardizing their processes, and they're standardizing proofreading. There's no reason companies should be looking at things visually, right? So the challenge that we've always had is we've always tackled our customers department by department. What's changed, and so you've been in the forefront of this with discussions with enterprise pharma, is it's no longer about a single deployment, it's about global deployment. It's about working with partners, it's about working within processes. So our technology, especially coming up in 2021, is going to be all about leveraging those partnerships, integrations, and a single place of collaboration proofreading. You shouldn't have to leave one system to go to another system to do your work, as Rob mentioned as well. You don't want to be entering information in two different places. It's about bringing these systems together. So whether we're talking about our standalone desktop where you're scanning a piece of paper and performing an inspection, connecting that to the central, about our digital inspection systems, our web-based systems, our direction is going to be about integrating, implementing these systems into the workflow, be part of the process, and that's across the entire organization. So that is what we're driving towards in the coming months, and things to look forward to in 2021.
Amazing, and we're definitely looking forward to growing that partnership with Pfizer as well, and along with our other customers. And with that, I think maybe it's time that we opened up the floor and let some of you participants ask your questions. If there's anybody that would like to raise their hand or unmute themselves and have any questions for Rob.
Or dare turn on your camera.
Everybody seems so quiet.
Yeah, I guess we covered a lot. I guess we covered a lot of ground there. So I mean, if there are no questions, we'll give everyone a couple of minutes to see if there are any questions. Well, I guess maybe something specific that came in. Oops, I don't know if Louis, yeah, there we go. I guess one of our partners in China is asking, how does, if you know, China manage their inspection process for like packaging and inserts? I guess they're referring to physical. Do you know how that happens in China?
You mean on incoming inspection, or do you mean?
Yeah.
They manage it using your. It's funny. I just had a meeting with them last night. So my meeting in the evening was with Jakarta and Wuxi and Nagoya. So in China and Indonesia and Japan, all those sites are moving from scan TVS to print inspection. So they will be utilizing print inspection by the end of this month, going live in our Wuxi site in China by accessing the digital approved artwork in our EPOM system and comparing it with the scan of the component that they receive at the site. So they'll be managing it similarly to the way it's managed at our other sites in the network.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Sue, do you see any? I'm not looking at the chat. Do you see any more questions in the chat?
I have not seen anything else come back in the chat.
You've asked a lot of questions, Arpad. We covered a lot.
I did. We covered a lot of ground there. So hopefully, I guess we did a good job, it seems, I guess. All right. If there are no other questions, again, Rob, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for everybody that joined. I will pass it over to Louisa, who will close things out.
Perfect. Thanks, Arpad. And yeah, I'll just echo Arpad again. Thank you so much, Robert, for making the time. We really, really appreciate all the insights you were able to share. For anyone that's on the call, if you would like to check out our website, it's globalvision.co, or feel free to send us an email at the email provided at the bottom. We will be sending out an email as well that has the slides from today as well as a recording so that you can go back and sort of, if you missed anything from today's discussion. So thank you everyone for joining, and yeah, we look forward to hopefully hearing from you.